Hello, everyone. Michele Molitor here, your hostess with the mostest for the Wonder Woman Unite show, call, support group, whatever you want to call it, here September 21st, 2018. I'm so happy that you all are here with us. And for those of you who are new to Wonder Woman Unite, let me just give you a little background about who we are, and then I'll tell you a little bit about our amazing guests that we have today. But I created Wonder Woman Unite about 2 years ago as a way to create an ongoing support group for women all around the world. It's through Lean In Circle, Sheryl Sandberg's organization. And essentially, my goal is to provide interesting topics and brilliant speakers to feed your brain, to give you inspiration and support on how to be the amazing woman that you are in the world and doing the work that you're here to do, because we all need help along the way, right? And so, together we can do more, go further, and, empower the world in a brilliant feminine way with all of our juiciness that we need to bring out into the world. So we meet the third Friday of every month at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 Eastern. That's 5:30 British Standard Time. And Gahmya is joining us from Bulgaria today, so it's 7:30 your time. That said, let me introduce her. Gahmya Drummond-Bey is an amazing woman. She's a professional learning hacker. I love that. She's a 2-time TEDx speaker, an international curriculum designer, and the founder and CEO of Evolved Teacher. She delivers online training. She's published books and has redesigned entire school programs and learning communities in over 10 countries. I have the joy and delight of working with Gahmya on an amazing new education and training program, which I'll tell you more about when it's ready, but it's not ready yet. So, but Gahmya has traveled the world and created a tremendous impact for students all around the world and their ability to learn and how they feel about themselves as they learn. And it's really just beautiful and heartwarming. And so today we're going to be talking about how to define your way to serve the world. So this is always a conversation. What I'll do is I'll as we move forward, I'll mute everybody, but then if we'll open it up at points along the way to have a discussion. You can also type into the chat box, and we're recording this, so for those of you who can't join us here on the live call, you'll be able to catch the replay here over the next couple of days. So welcome, Gahmya. I'm so happy you're here, and thanks. Tell us how your day is going first and foremost, and we'll just start there.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My day's been pretty busy. I have pretty busy days, a lot of projects that I am tackling, that I asked the universe for, and the goodness is rained upon you. People often say when it rains, it pours in a negative way. But when it rains good things, it pours good things as well. It happens both ways. But the thing about that is it's comfortable. Joy is a comfortable feeling. So we don't usually think about those times. We remember the times of discomfort, right? We remember the sad rains, the sad downpours. But right now I'm experiencing a very joyous downpour of a lot of amazing projects that I'm balancing right now. So pretty much when I get up in the mornings, I have about 60 teens that I connect to. 660 from 40 different countries that I mastermind with and make sure that they are learning and growing and feeling of value. So I do that. I check in with them when I wake up and make sure everything's great. And I figure out how I'm going to serve the country that I'm in. So now I'm in Bulgaria. So I am working on a few projects in Bulgaria. So for me, it's kind of like my mom would say, whenever you visit a place or stay a place, leave it cleaner than you found it. So for me, it's like that with education. Even if I'm visiting or just stopping by, I have to leave some type of educational footprint. And so I came to Bulgaria actually as a place to kind of give me space to work on everything. But I walk past a school every day. So of course, have to tell them who I am and what I do. So,
there's a carrot. There's a little educational carrot.
So yeah, I'm creating a lot right now. I'm working on a virtual reality education project, which is interesting for me because I've never created anything with virtual reality. But over the summer, someone gifted me with 360 cameras. And 3 months ago, I did a TED residency. I gave a TED talk. And at my TED residency, I was with a lot of people who worked with artificial intelligence. And of course, when you have your passion, whatever you learn, you figure out how you can add that to your passion, you know? It's like if you love to cook and you're in a new place, you're like, oh, can I learn how to cook Thai food? Can I learn how to cook Indian food, you know? And so being around so much artificial intelligence, I wanted to know how could I implement that in education. So that's one of the main projects I'm working on here is actually, I haven't told you this, Michele, I don't think, but I am creating something to pitch to the National Geographic, a geography course with VR where the kids can go to the mountains of Bulgaria or the pyramids in Egypt, or next week I go to Greece, and they can put on the VR goggles and actually walk around and experience these places and learn about them.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. And that's so beautiful. I have a young woman that I mentor at Facebook. And I go over periodically and we have dinner because, dinner's free on Facebook. It's great.
Yeah.
And this was probably 2 years ago now. They had acquired Oculus. And so she's like, you want to go to the VR lab? I'm like, yeah. And so I got to do the whole VR experience, which I had never done before. And they had several different, prototypes, if you will. And you could step into these different worlds. And I was just blows your mind. I'm like, oh, we're going to lose people to the virtual reality world and come back. But that sounds so exciting. I'm thrilled for you.
Thanks. I'm really excited about it. It's a lot of fun days.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about how you stepped into your passion around education, because it just oozes out all your pores in the best kinds of ways.
Yeah, it didn't start out as my passion at all. I would say it began as my pain. And I want to begin with a little story that I tell my students and now everyone I worked with. And it comes from a book called The Little Soul and the Sun. And there's another one, The Little Soul and the Earth. Amazing books. And the idea is that we once existed as little souls, up in wherever you believe you were. And, life was perfect, but we looked down and we said, I want to go down there. I want to experience that. What's happening there? And whatever higher power you believed in said, well, okay, here's the thing. The only way you can go down there is if you learn something. You have to learn a lesson, and it's going to be tough. And this is when I stick a little bit of my own sauce in there, and I'm talking to my students and I say, now we're all these overachieving people, you know, we have all these things that we want to do. I can imagine my little soul right now saying, oh, give me all the lessons, give me all you got. I want to learn everything. I want to experience everything, not knowing what we're asking for.
Right.
And so the higher power then says, okay, but you have to have someone here go down with you and teach you the lesson. And it's going to be tough. You won't remember that they're actually doing you a favor when they're teaching you this very difficult thing, you know? And so you go down and you learn whatever your lessons were. And so for me, when I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a doctor because I wanted to help people. I wanted to heal people. I wanted to do things that would help people to live better lives. And it was mainly because I have a schizophrenic mother. And so I experienced this parent daily who had a battle of the happy and the sad, the angry and the joyous, you know, voices. And I was the one who would say, okay, Mom, you get to choose the voice that you listen to. What is the good voice saying? You know, what are they doing? And I was the person she would go to because she would say, you know, Gahmya, for some reason, can guide me towards, you know, that happy place or that happy thought. And as a child, I said, oh, I would be a great doctor then. You know, I would be really good at that. And that became one of the pains. And now what I tell people is find the problem that you love to solve. Because there are problems in every situation. And when you find that problem that you love solving, you know, that you don't mind getting dirty with, okay, that's your thing, follow that. And I realized that helping people to choose their good place or their good feeling or their space of value was a problem that I always loved and still love solving. And there was a time when I was in university and I thought, okay, it's time for me to go to medical school, but there are going to be 8 more years and I have to wait 8 more years before I can do something of value, of service. I have to wait, you know? And I thought, well, what can I do now? What can I do now that matters? And so I joined the Peace Corps. I was a Peace Corps volunteer.
Wow.
And and so I went to Turkmenistan, and there it was actually illegal to teach, to be an educator. And there were about 100 students who found me one day and they said, we know it's illegal, but could you please teach us? And I said, I have no teaching skills. I don't know how to teach you, you know, but I had to try, you know, you're there and 100 kids are looking at you, you know. And so that became my mission, my curiosity. And one thing that I like to say, because I think that the idea of finding a passion or following your purpose, if you don't know what it is, can be a bit of torture to someone. Find your passion. Okay, I would if I knew. Come on, you know. But if you follow your curiosity, whatever it is, you know, and if you follow it in action, you know, I like to tell my students that action and execution is the language of success. So whatever it is that you think, you know, or that you want to experience, act on it in a way that other people can see it. You know, make your mark, even if it's just posting on Facebook. Hey, everyone, I have an idea of writing a book. Ask me about it. You know, that's you really executing something, taking a step. And so that's how I began. I actually had that new curiosity of a problem that I was interested in solving. And then I just started trying. One country, one step at a time.
That's such an inspiring story to me, and it really points out that sometimes your purpose finds you. Like, I'm in a foreign country, Turkmenistan, one of those stands, and these children approached you like, we pick you. We want you to help us because we see your light. We know that you have wisdom to share with us, even when we don't always see that light or wisdom in ourselves, right?
Right.
And so it's like, oh, okay, sure, I'll step up. And so that's such a great point for everyone who's listening to understand is sometimes it chooses you, it hits you over the head. You know, I was in web development before I became a coach, and the universe in its own special way told me, no, not that. Look over here, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to be open to those pointings, right?
Yes.
Listening to your intuition. So I love that that's how this started to unfold for you.
Yeah, and I would say...
No, go ahead.
Also, really listening to your resistance, because for me there was definitely resistance. I thought, I didn't come to this country for this. I'm going to be a doctor. You want me to teach you English? What? You know, but there are times when you really have to forget who you are to become who you are. And for me, whenever I notice that I'm saying no a lot before I try because of who I think I am or what I think I'm here to do, I take a step back and follow those no's. Pay close attention to what you're saying no to, because oftentimes it's because of fear. You know, like, wait, why am I saying no to this? Why can't I be a speaker? Why can't I create courses? Why can't I monetize this? You know, and stepping outside of those boxes, because a lot of, especially now in the world of branding, it becomes really easy to place ourselves in these boxes. And then we're like, wait, how did I get in here? You know, why aren't I allowing myself to try things? So yeah, follow that resistance.
Yeah, because you know, fear can be a huge motivator, right? There's that part of our brains, the amygdala. I like to call her Amy. Amy's job is to keep you safe, right? To move you away from pain and towards pleasure. But her job is also to keep you safe, and oftentimes that's way inside your comfort zone and inside that box, right? And it's when we stretch beyond the edge of our comfort zone, it gets uncomfortable. But I've learned that uncomfortable happens, so keep going, right?
Yes.
If your heart is really pulling you in that direction, even though Amy's all like, well, I don't know about that. What do you think you're doing? Right? You're like, right. Hold on, I think I got this. Shut it, Amy. Right?
Right. That's what it's for. Fear, or when you're uncomfortable, it gets you moving. You're like, I don't like this. It's an itchy sweater, you know? So you start moving some way. But if you love it, if it feels good, you're like, yeah, I'll just stay here and enjoy this. And then you limit yourself. So comfort can be very limiting.
Yes.
So I love the importance of feeling and diving into every single thing that you feel, because it's for a reason.
Yes. And that's so valuable, because gosh, you know, I see so many people who have gone numb to their own feelings, right? They're afraid to feel, they're afraid to dream. I was working with a woman just the other day who is happy in her life. She has a great relationship, a beautiful job that she enjoys, a loving family. And yet she had a belief that, oh, you can't be too happy. Something bad might happen. And I was like, do you hear yourself? Does that make sense? She's like, yeah, that doesn't really make sense. But it was such a subconscious level. It was literally making her ill. So, you know, it's amazing what we do to hold ourselves back based on those deeply rooted fears or beliefs that we have that we don't even know that we have oftentimes, that we got from somebody else along the way. So listening to your body and allowing it to pull you forward is really, really valuable. So, you know, Gahmya, you have such an amazing story. How have you taken those unexpected turns and that pain that you lived through as a child to use that to really start to more and more define how to be of service in the world? You know, you ended up in Turkmenistan and these kids coming at you like, hey, we want to learn English. But what had you continue to move forward and like, oh, I need to look here and here and here?
I followed the not the questions and insecurities that I had before. You know, every time I felt uncomfortable, every time I felt afraid, every time I felt something that I thought was a limitation, I wanted to push myself beyond that. So when I was a kid, I really didn't have role models or anyone who had a life that I live now. I had no view of a teacher who didn't have a mindset of lack, who was happy and okay with living in an abundant life, who traveled. I didn't know what that was like. But I remember there was a point when I sat down and I said, you know, okay, I'm really interested in education and serving in this way, but I need to create a vision for myself of how that would look for me. And also not limit myself based on what I've seen before or what I've been taught to see or what I think is possible. I'm going to give myself permission to create a vision beyond what I can even imagine, you know? And I did that. I wrote for different areas of my life. I allowed myself to push through even what I could imagine, even what I thought was possible. And there was a time when I created this vision and I posted it on my refrigerator. And then I decided to revisit that and I worked it backwards. And this was one of the most powerful things that I had ever done, because when I worked that vision backwards, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, the next 9 months, 30 days, I like to do a lot of 30-day actionable experiences. I realized that they weren't beyond my scope. Nothing was beyond my scope. If you want to travel the world, okay. Visit a budget airline. Where do you want to go? There are flights to Greece for $5.99. Seriously, I just bought one. Yes, I just bought one. Yes, you know, $5.99. All of these things are really available, but we're our own limitations, you know? And so one thing that I would do and that I still do is really cross out my fears. What am I afraid of? Am I afraid that if I become an educator that I will have to have 3 jobs and have to struggle? Okay, let me write that down. Okay, let's dive into that. Why? Why do you have to be that way? Why do you have to live that way? Is this true? You know, and for me, a lot of truths that other people experienced, they weren't true for me because I didn't allow them to be true for me. And even now, just the whole idea of, you know, I'm going to create something with virtual reality. I wrote that down and I promise you, I was in Estonia and someone gifted me virtual reality equipment, 360 cameras, like all this stuff here. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Yeah, you know, and the people that you need, the experiences that you need show up. But the thing is that we often tell ourselves what we aren't capable of before we tell ourselves what we are capable of. You know, we give ourselves the we can't do, you know, we don't have time to do that. There aren't enough hours in a day to do that. There's not enough money to do that. And you say, okay, before I even consider all of those things, let's just consider what it is that I actually want. Now, how can I start this one thing, one actionable step? How can I start it today? How? And there's always a way. There's always a way. And if there's any belief that there isn't a way, that belief is a block.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I really love what you said, that we are our own limitations.
Yeah.
And often those limitations are coming from the stories we've absorbed from others around us,
Yes.
right? Um, they're the stories we got from our parents. They're the
Yeah.
stories we got from our grandparents or our teachers or the other adults in the room, who were limited by their fears.
Right.
And particularly our family unit, right? We absorb a lot of those fears unconsciously, even at a cellular level, right? When we're in utero in our mother's womb, we're literally absorbing those emotions, those fears, those beliefs, and we take them on because we don't have the ability to process or discern what's mine, what's theirs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we grow up with this perspective, with these filters already on our eyes about what's possible and what's not possible. So I love that you said, write it down and then ask yourself, well, what am I really afraid of? And is it true? Is
Right.
it true? No, 9 times out of 10, it's really, really not. Um, I'm, uh, I'm guessing, but I won't make any assumptions. Are you familiar with the work of Byron Katie?
I am. I read a few of her books. I haven't attended any seminars or anything, but I read 2 of her books and I absolutely love them. I love the way that she redefines things.
Yeah, it really, for those of you who are not familiar, Byron Katie is world-renowned teacher, and through her pain, she had a massive breakthrough, epiphany, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, of, oh, my pain is my own making.
Mm-hmm.
And she created a simple tool called The Work. You can look up The Work online, and it's like 5 simple questions. And one of them,
Mm-hmm.
is it true? Right?
Is
Because
it
if it's
true?
not true,
The
then why are
first
you
one.
believing it?
Right.
Exactly. So you've done some amazing things. You've traveled around the world. You've impacted education systems in multiple countries. Tell us how you got into that journey. I know Turkmenistan was the first of many stops along the way. Where else have you been able to contribute your gifts, and what led you to those places?
Wow. Well, now it's been more than 20 countries. Now it's a lot of it happened after Turkmenistan. I went to South Korea, and it was because I wanted to learn how to actually be an educator. But I decided not to go back to the US, to my home country, and go to university because I thought, or for like a master's degree, because I thought, well, they don't really have it right. So why would I go there and study and learn from from my country? It's not working there. So I went during that time. That's when South Korea had the highest results or test results in the world. So I decided to go there and learn. At least I gave myself a year, sink or swim. If you don't like it, okay, go to medical school, become a doctor, And I went there, and my first year, the results in my classroom were amazing. So amazing that the school thought about firing the other teachers who taught my same grade level. And they asked me, what are you doing that's different? And I said, well, I don't have the background of an educator. So the only thing that I'm doing is completely focusing on the body language and the eyes of the child. If they're bored, if they're unhappy, if they're fidgeting, if the pencils start falling, then that's my cue to do something different, to move, to change it up. It's not my cue to punish them. No, that's you telling me that something I'm doing is not serving you in the right way.
Mm.
And I use that as my tool in the classroom. And then I began designing my own curriculum for the students. So in the beginning, my students were 4 years old, and just like anyone who's excited, if you show up in a room and you're excited about something, people want to know, what are you smiling about? You know, has anyone asked you that? What are you laughing about? What are you smiling about? You know, people want to know what brings you joy. And at that time, I was reading philosophy and doing yoga and things like that. And I remember asking my students, hey, do you want to know about philosophy? And they're like, yeah. And I created this book on philosophy, Socrates, Aristotle. And I told them, you know, well, at that time I was starting to write my first book. And I said, do you all want to write your own books? And they say, yeah. And I said, no, they're just learning how to write sentences. So I said, okay, I'll teach you how to write sentences, but we'll put them together because you are writers, you know? And so they had that I am, which is so important for all of us. Instead of, you know, I will be. Can you imagine? That's how we learn in school. I will be, maybe after 12 years, I may possibly be a doctor, you know? Instead of that is, I am today, right now, you know? And so that's what writing class was. I am a writer. And they wrote books. They wrote these 13 sentence essays, and this was their second languages. So by then, words started to get around, and I got like famous in my community because of that. And it wasn't because I was following any major style or technique. I just really put the child first. They are the teachers. If you don't love it, then it's not right. You know, I want you to love it. That's it, every day. And, you know, I wanted them to have something to say that they could do every day, you know, and apply it to their real lives. Hey, mom, I'm a writer. I am writing a book. You know, hey, mom, I learned about proper eating. I am going to help you make a meal, you know, so something that they can actually apply. And so that was my first year. And after that, I wanted to learn more. So instead of getting pay increases, I said, you know, I don't want a pay increase. I want you to push me harder. So if I've excelled with the 5-year-olds, send me to the teenagers. Let me train teachers. You know, don't give me a higher pay, cut my hours. Because if you cut my hours, if I have shorter days, then I can do things at home. I can start building a business. I can create things. I can study. And so I did that for 5 years instead of getting, because they couldn't really afford to pay me as much as I was worth at that time. But I wanted to be paid with knowledge and experiences and leadership. And through that, I was able to build a body of work and an area of expertise that I would have had to attain a PhD in the States before I would even have the opportunity to do these things, to train teachers, to lead. And by doing that, I really gave myself a great start in education as a learner, as a leader. And then I started to travel to different countries to test my skills. Does this work with Syrian refugees in Greece? Or is it only wealthy kids in South Korea? Does this work on the streets of Bangkok? If I sit there, will the kids say, you know what, I want to come over there and learn with you? And so I would do these different things to test myself, but also to see, hey, am I onto something? Is this really working? And the beauty of curiosity is that when you dive into it, it creates a force of momentum that's hard to break, you know? And that's why I say success is in execution, because when you try something, when you put it out there in the world and then you get feedback and people are talking about whatever it is that you love, man, that motivates you. You want to do it more, you know? It's one part of shining is that the light on you sends a spotlight on your community that you're serving or whatever it is that you love. And so for me, by talking about education, although I was the main one during the interviews and things like that, it's the kids who are placed in the spotlight. Now people are saying, oh, I should do that with my kids. I should, when they're doing their homework and they seem bored and they put their pencil down, I should say, hey, what is it? What is it that you're bored with? What is it that's upsetting you? You know, how can I do better? Should we stand up? Should we move around when we do this? Should we actually sing and count by moving things instead of just writing things? How can we make this a better experience for you? And to me, that's what really got it all started. And now it's so second nature that I can't really answer, well, how are you there now? Now it's so embedded in my skin.
Absolutely.
I just show up in a place and it's like, okay, Gahmya, it's time to serve. All right, let's do this.
I love that because, yeah, kids are amazing and they have these brilliant lights and curiosity and, particularly here in the United States, we tend to try to stuff them in a box. I worked in education for 11 years with a program that I was a part of, and essentially we were working with the educators, not the students directly, and it was so disheartening to me because I saw so many educators. There was probably 25% who were, excited to be there and happy to serve and delighted to come up with new and different ways. And there was a good bit of them who were tired and burnt out and frustrated and overwhelmed, and understandably so, because they're being forced to fit themselves and the students into a box that doesn't really work very well, and it doesn't make people very happy. And then we wonder why we have all the issues that we have here in the United States, and the suicide rates and the mass shootings and the huge amounts of depression and drug overdoses, and all of that comes back to not feeling our feelings, not having a safe space to express ourselves, not having someone who sees us clearly and believes in us and says, yes, you are a writer, right? And so, I can feel the joy that you bring to those students. I can see the joy that creates in them, because you're essentially seeing them and inviting them to be themselves and to find a way to learn that meets them where they are, versus like, no, you're going to sit in this desk and you're going to write this down and we're going to do it this way and this way. And we're not, as human beings, we're meant to move, we're meant to dance, we're meant to laugh and sing and play, and learning through doing is just a natural way. But somehow they've forgotten that in education in the United States, and it's so disheartening. And I have such great respect for the teachers out there who work so many long hours and are, despite the system, are doing really good work. But it's really challenging, and they don't get paid what they're worth, right? So I love that you have completely eliminated the box, drawn outside the lines, and created your own way of doing and seeing and thinking and sharing that with the world. And I'm excited to share this with all my educator friends. Like, really, no kidding, you really have to watch this. Absolutely. So tell us about your adventures with your TED Talks. I know a lot of the women in the Wonder Woman Unite tribe are, aspiring speakers, are executives, are business owners, and speaking, getting up in front of people isn't always the most comfortable thing for some folks. And so I'd love to hear, how you got to be, a TED speaker, and what you've learned along the way.
Okay, awesome. So there are two different approaches. So there's an approach to be a TEDx speaker, and then there's an approach to be a TED speaker, and they're quite different. Is there one that you would rather I discuss over the other?
I didn't know there was a difference, so you tell me. I mean, I know there's a difference between the two, but their approach is different, and so I'd love to hear about both of them, quite frankly.
Awesome. So TEDx is a lot more vast. There are multiple TEDx organizers and events all over the world. It's a license of TED. And the idea for TEDx is essentially having an idea worth spreading, having a story, which every single person has a story. And I often meet people and they say, well, I don't really think my story is important, or I haven't experienced anything really traumatic. You don't have to have a traumatic life experience for your story to matter. You don't have to have a traumatic life experience for your story to inspire and move people. And that's something that is really important that for people to know. And you don't have to create one. You don't have to serve from a place of pain always. You don't. You can serve from your joy and be just as impactful. And so what I often do when I'm talking to people who want to share messages and give talks, and also when I talk to my kids, and this is what my TED Talk, it hasn't been released yet, but the idea of my TED Talk is not to ask people, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's one of the most disheartening questions you can ever ask a child. And instead ask them, what problem in the world do you want to solve? And if you have a very creative child, a child who's very musical, who likes art, who likes dancing, you ask them, well, how do you want to bring joy to the world? How do you want to make the world happy? Because they come from that type of space, and we come from different spaces. There's no one size fit all way of encouraging people, of learning, right? And so when you approach your talk, you approach it from the same way. Okay, what problem are you solving? What is it that you want people to know? How do you want to impact people? What do you want to share? What do you have on your heart? And one thing that I tell people is, okay, when you figure out or you think you know what that is, write a letter to someone and tell them about it. You don't have to give them the letter, but write a letter to someone close to you explaining your idea. Because what happens is when you write a letter to someone close to you, and not someone who's your best friend in the field that you work in. So for you, Michele, not someone who does therapy, who does coaching, but to your mom or to your aunt Sandy or whomever. Because when you write it to them, you have to come from a place of, okay, right now, this may not seem very important to you, but let me explain to you why you need to know this, And so you write that letter. And then after, first of all, writing that letter will be very useful for you. So keep that letter because when you have your authentic words, your authentic way of expressing things, before you try to make it more, make it sound better for the stage, that authentic way of expression is always the best way. And you go back to that later when you're like, oh, I keep editing it. It doesn't sound like me. Oh, that's because it was you when you first wrote it to your Aunt Sandy. That was you and it was perfect. And then, so after you do that, take that main idea and think of your mantra. What is your mantra for your message? What is it? And really hold on to that mantra. I recommend sharing that mantra. Practice saying that mantra in conversation. Because one thing about TED is it's TED Talks, right? It's not TED speeches. So you want to share something that you talk about naturally. This is my mantra. My mantra is, don't ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? What problem in the world do you want to solve? How do you want to bring joy in the world? Focus on the joy. What is that mantra? And just practice sharing that mantra and spreading that mantra. And what will happen is one of two things. Either it will roll off of your tongue like butter, or you'll have that feeling in your gut like, no, this isn't quite it. This isn't my mantra. Both are amazing, and play with that. And then the next thing that you do is break it down into one word. And this one word is for you. It's the essence of it. It's the essence of what you're spreading. It's the essence of, well, what category is this in? Who are your people? Because another thing about sharing your story is that it's never about the story. It's more than that. It's about your tribe. It's about the people you're serving, And so I also tell people, well, this is also a great place to start writing about this. So one thing that you can do is you can go to Google and write 3 words, write for us, plus, and then put that word in. Press enter. And what's going to happen is you're going to see a list of different publications that are asking for people to write about this. And what that does is it's going to send a message to that little negative Nancy that's in your brain, you know, in the monkey mind that say, you're not good enough to start giving this talk. What are you doing? Why are you writing a letter to your Aunt Sandy? And you're going to see that there is a space for this message already. There are people who are looking for answers, who are looking for information, who are waiting for your talk, right? And so you can choose to submit something and write to those publications if you want. Another thing that you can do is you can write contributor plus that, and you can find contributors, publications, Forbes, or whomever who are looking for people to contribute on that content. But you can also just use it as a motivator, you know, that there is a space for that. And okay, so this is when things get a bit, am I going too fast?
No, I'm taking notes over here. It's great.
Okay.
Everybody who can't be on the call, this is awesome.
So this is things where things get a bit different for TEDx and TED. So for TEDx, it's all about that main message, you know, and I'll tell you how you break that down. But for TED, it's about your message, but they also want some, either a body of work or some data, or where you have gotten dirty a bit. You know, how have you really played around with this message? Do you have results? And so for people who have a message and, you know, for me, it was, well, you know, I've been doing this in over 20 countries. I can actually tell you what children all around the world want you to know, you know, because I've talked to them, you know. And so having that connected to a message, if you can do that, then you're TED ready. Okay, so it's just having some kind of skin in the game with your message. And if you don't have skin in the game, that's fine. You'll get there. That's your next step, you know. And so you can start with TEDx. And TEDx, they are ready to hear that message, because your story can be what someone else who maybe they're wandering the world, not really knowing what they're doing yet, and they hear your message like, oh man, thank you, Brene Brown. You know, her talk was a TEDx talk. It wasn't a TED talk. TEDx talks can be very powerful. And so you can give a talk that is just as powerful as Brene Brown's, and can really help people to connect with what they need in that moment. And so if you're giving a TED talk, one thing that you want to do, and this is what you can do, is just start sketching out a framework of your talk. Play with it, you know, really, really get into it. You don't want to start your talk with who you are and what you do. You're amazing. We love you, but we don't really care right now. We want to know why.
That's nice, but keep moving.
Yeah, we want to go straight to the heart of it. We want to see you in that moment of joy. That I tell people to start with a story. You know, I believe in starting and ending talks in the heart space, right? And so wherever you were when you realized that your mantra was needed, or that you needed it, or where you searched for it, that story, take us right there. Go for it. And we want to feel it. We want to be next to you. If you were in the car, we want to have our hands on the steering wheel too. If, you know, there were tears of joy, go straight to the tears of joy. Take us to that moment. And the best talks actually create scenes. You know, it's like a visual picture. And so think of your entire talk as scenes. You can see the images. And if you move away from the scenes and you start, suddenly you're in a scene and you're in the movie, and then you stand up and you're a teacher, cut that out. We don't want that teacher moment, right? We didn't like it then, we don't want it now. You know, keep us in the movies, keep us in that theater and that experience. So you want to start, and that's called the hook. So you hook people in, right? And so when you start with that story to that moment, then you want to give us the mantra. So that is what are we going to learn? So talks are either how talks or why talks. How to do this or why you should do this, right? So what is that one message, right? And then after you take us there, now we're kind of like, oh, well, I was in my heart space, but what's in it for me? So now you go into the mind, right? So you start us in our hearts, and then you give us the message. But even when you go to the mind, for every type of lesson that you have, you give us a story. You give us a story, a scene, and then you give us that golden nugget, that takeaway, tweetable for the millennials, you know? And
Yes.
you give us those stories. So what I like to call this is a river. So if you imagine, and you know, I'm a traveler, so this works for me, but if you're in a village and you're standing and you're giving a talk, throughout the talk, you can just imagine people listening and they aren't drinking anything. And every time you remind us of the point or the power or the mantra, we get a sip of that, of water. So you don't want to just tell us the mantra or the point one time because we're thirsty again, we're forgetting. So you want to have a river throughout your entire talk that reminds us. You want to say it at the beginning, you want to say it in the middle, and you want to say it at the end. Even if it's just a 4-minute talk, you know, we're thirsty, you got to give us that water to drink, right? So you just imagine that as the river going through your talk, all right? And so essentially, if you write this out, you'll have a powerful talk, you know, start in the heart space, the story, the scene, go to the mind and give us the meat of it, explain to us, and then go back to the heart space. And when you go back to the heart space, and this is where a lot of people, they miss things. They go to motivation. You know, I like to say, I love Gary Vee, but I think he's a wonderful motivator. You know, he gets you standing and he's like, yeah, you need to do this. And you stand up and you're like, but I don't know where to go. You didn't tell me actually what to do. You just motivated me. And those are great because they leave you with understanding, but it isn't a full experience. And so if you want to have a talk, and this is what takes things from a TEDx to a TED, is you want to give people their transformation. So you want to give them the direct application. It's not enough to only help people to understand things. You have to let them know what to do immediately. What can I do in my life with this knowledge that I've learned? And some people call that a call to action, but sometimes people drop the ball with call to actions because they really generalize them. But you really want people to walk away with, okay, I understand, and also I can apply this. And there you are. That's your talk.
Easy peasy, just like that. It says the TEDx resident or the TED resident. What was that like, by the way, being absorbed in the whole soup of TED for, what was it, a whole month?
3 months. It was 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. It was crazy. Well, the main thing is we were there to give TED Talks, which is crazy, preparing for a TED Talk at TED every day.
Yeah.
Like, no pressure, guys.
No pressure whatsoever.
And that, and just there were regularly people in the office, you know, people to meet, things to do. For me, the most difficult part was actually the reverse culture shock of going back to America, and not in New York, no less, you know, New York City. Whoa, every day. That was wild for me. And the way that our culture does things, it was just really an interesting experience for me to drop in, and everyone's busy. Everyone's looking at their watches all the time. And how are we short on time here? Like, shorter than everywhere else in the world. This is weird. So that was an experience for me, but it was great because I realized how much we impact while we are being impacted, you know? And so for me, although I went in that space and, you know, people were looking at their watches, I never wore a watch. I was just like, I guess I'm going to be that person without a watch. It's weird for me, guys. You know, I'm just going to show up here and be that person. Hi, you know, I'm from North Carolina. You look at me, you're ready for a conversation. That's how we do things. So, you know, and that was great for me to experience myself outside of myself in different spaces, you know, and that was great for me. Like, oh wow, this is it was also great to hear the conversations with the staff, because I also taught a program with the kids of TED, all of the main TED curators brought their teams in, and I led them through a day, and just hearing their feedback of just, their TED. I mean, they've had all of these conversations and these talks, but seeing how they are inspired by something fresh and something new was very motivating for me, because it's easy to become have what you do become glossed over in your own mind, like, oh, what I do is not amazing, and so that was great. And it was a reminder for me that everything that you do is fresh to someone else. Every space that you enter, you have something of value for that table, every single space. And that was a great reminder for me. And I think that was one of the main things that, other than the friendships and, some other experiences from TED, was just that reminder that you have something of value at every seat that you sit in. And I think that's something that we all need to know.
Oh, that's such a beautiful reminder, because we become unconsciously competent in our expertise, and
yes.
we think, well, everybody can do that. Well, no,
right.
Everyone can't. And most people, it's never even occurred to them that is a whole other way to exist in the world, right? And so that's a really, really beautiful point. But the thing that stands out most for me about what you said is that you would show up to this room with all these amazing people and just be really, really present, versus are we on time, or do we right? And that's what's so necessary, particularly with children, is you just have to be really present with them. And when you do that, they're like little flowers, and they open up, because as humans, we all just want to be seen, heard, and appreciated for what we bring to the table, for what we have to say. And when we can give that, even if it's momentary, undivided attention to the people we're with, it makes a tremendous difference, and allows people to actually open up more fully, and to experience things, to be more engaged, to be more present, and to allow themselves to feel the joy of what's actually there for them to feel. So, well, gosh, this has been such a wonderful time with you, Gahmya, today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your brilliance and your light with us. This is it's like food for my soul when I get to do this every month. And so I really want to thank everybody who's been able to join us today, everyone who's going to be listening in as we get the replay out there. And just as a reminder, we have Wonder Woman Unite every month, the third Friday of the month. So please mark your calendars. Our next call will be October 19th, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 noon, 12:30 Eastern, 5:30 British Standard Time. And then the rest of you beautiful people around the world, please sort out your own time zone. Right? So,
can I ask a question?
Yes, please, Gina.
Do you speak any other language?
Do I speak any other languages?
Other than English? Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I speak 5 languages.
Amazing.
But I learned them all abroad. I didn't speak any other languages other than English when I was in the States.
Wow, amazing.
Thank you.
That is amazing. Yeah, learning languages is its own special talent. So thank you for that, for sure. Well, again, thank you, Gahmya. Truly my pleasure, my delight to have you here on the show with us. And I know everyone is going to really enjoy listening in on this. And sending you all many, many blessings and love, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll see you next month. So
thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.